Concord, I think the reaction of most people today to the news that the Gardaí have gone in to search the offices of Anglo Irish Banks is that it's about time. And I don't want to say any more about it for the reasons that have already been stated. The priority, I think, that we all have to address is the necessity, imperative, of getting confidence restored in the Irish banking and the Irish financial system. I think we're all agreed on that. But I think we have to be honest as well about what is eroding the confidence in Irish banks and the Irish banking system. And contributing to that has been the incremental release of information, in particular about what went on in Anglo Irish Bank. The deficiencies in the regulatory setup, and I would also say deficiencies in the political supervision by government of that regulatory setup. We know about the back-to-back arrangement between Anglo Irish Bank and Irish Life and Permanent, which Price Waterhouse reported on in October. The Minister for Finance didn't read at the time, didn't find out about it until January, when it was drawn to his attention. When he did find out about it, he did nothing about it until the 10th of October, when it became public knowledge. And then we had a flurry of activity of board being called in, executives resigning, and so on. At the weekend, we had a most extraordinary report in the Sunday Tribune, which, frankly, I find hard to believe. Report in the Sunday Tribune, which says that it has seen transcripts to confirm this, says that at a meeting in September, the financial director of Anglo Irish Bank, Mr. Willie McAteer, told the head of our financial regulatory body, Mr. Neary, that the bank would be managing its balance sheet. In other words, cooking its books. And that the response of Mr. Neary to that was, fair play to you, Willie. That a phone call from officials from Anglo Irish Bank told staff and the financial regulator in October, now this is after our guarantee was put in place, that the bank was manipulating its balance sheet and that the balance sheet did not represent a real number. And the paper goes on to report that a senior civil servant, who's reported as working closely with Minister Lenihan, assured Irish Life and Permanent that he understood why it was necessary to carry out the transactions, the back-to-back transactions, and that there was no need for concern over those arrangements. Have you checked, Taoiseach, if those stories are true? Have you asked the Minister for Finance about them? And what can you tell the House about them today? Because I agree with you. I mean, we do have to restore confidence in Irish banks. And part of the restoration of the confidence in Irish banks, and particularly in relation to Anglo Irish Bank, is to identify if wrongdoing took place and to have it dealt with. But I think part of it as well is to restore some confidence in regulation of Irish banks. And I'd like to know if that story that appeared on Sunday is accurate, and what steps have you taken, or has the Minister for Finance taken, to check if that story was true?
Dr. Gilmore.
Well, I want to try and be helpful at Corla, because I mean there is, I think, a national interest here, and I would invite the Taoiseach, with due respect now to the answer that he has given, to come at my questions a second time, because I don't want to be adversarial about this. The issue here, first of all, in respect of the meeting, or in respect of the senior civil servant in the Department of Finance, is not whether or not the Department of Finance gave approval to the arrangements between Anglo Irish and Irish Life and Permanent. I think it's accepted that they didn't actually improve or give, as the Taoiseach says, an imprimatur to it. The question is whether they gave the nod to it. And that's what I want you to address. And I think it's important. You know, you shouldn't, you know, we do have a duty to ask questions here. And, you know, I'll try and ask the questions in as responsible and in as coherent a way as I can. These are questions I didn't invent. These are questions that are raised in reports that are in the public domain. And I think there is a responsibility on the Taoiseach or on the Minister for Finance to address them when they're asked. And I'm trying to invite those. So that's number one, is in relation to the Department of Finance. The second is in relation to the financial regulator. Now, we know that Mr. Neary is gone. But can you address this issue, or have you made any inquiries? I mean, this question of the regulator being told in September, and apparently again, the Office of the Regulator being told in October, that Anglo was in effect, as it's put here, managing its balance sheet, and that effectively they were given the nod as well for that. I mean, this is a case not of light regulation. I mean, this is blind eye regulation. Now, you know, the reputation of the country and the reputation of our banks and all of the economic consequences that flow from that, I mean, are at stake here. And yes, what went on in Anglo has to be investigated. The Labour Party has been looking for this for some time. I'm very glad to see progress being made on it. We've been looking for an inspector, for example, to be put in there for some time. But there are also questions, and there's also an issue of reputation about our regulatory regime and about the political supervision of that regulation. Now, these are reports which were in a Sunday newspaper. I don't believe everything I read in the newspapers, but I do think that the Taoiseach should respond in the interests of making sure that the country's reputation isn't further damaged.